Merry Christmas, brother.
Who's this?
It's a thank you. I got something for Marietta, too. It's classy, I promise.
Oh.
I got a matching one for Beverly and cufflinks for you.
Return them. You know better than this.
What? Why?
Go back to Tiffany's. Return it all. Now. Those diamonds are for you. They have nothing to do with your wife or me. They're for you to feel important. Richard, does your father feel important right now? No. That's because he's confused. He's confused things with wealth. Things you buy. Wealth is something you build. And you don't do it for yourself. You build wealth for your family.
You spend all your money on art.
Do you understand what a legacy is?
No.
How about this? Do you know who invented dynamite? It was this Swedish chemist, and he made a fortune off it. More money than he knew what to do with. One day, when he was still very much alive, the newspaper ran his obituary by mistake. They called him a merchant of death. In fact, it was his brother who died, but when he picked up that paper and saw his life's work spelled out in front of him, he was horrified. This is what my life has been. This is what I'll be known for. Death and bombs and murder. That day, he changed his will. He donated his fortune to establish a prize honoring the most brilliant people on the planet. So today, nobody knows Alfred Nobel as a merchant of death. All they know is the Nobel Peace Prize. That is legacy. That is why we invest in art. That is why we invest in museums. And that is why they now bear the single most valuable thing that we will ever own: our name. Your father has to be reminded of that lesson sometimes. So, brother, take this garish nonsense back where you got it. Go. Now.
Have a nice day,
Your mother's dead. Before long I'll be dead. And you. And your brother. And your sister. And all of her children. All of us dead. All of us rotting in the ground. It's the family name that lives on. It's all that lives on. Not your personal glory, not your honor, but family.
Do you understand? You're blessed with abilities that few men possess. You're blessed to belong to the most powerful family in the kingdoms. And you're still blessed with youth. And what have you done with these blessings, huh? You've served as a glorified bodyguard for two kings. One a madman, the other a drunk. The future of our family will be determined in these next few months. We could establish a dynasty that will last 1,000 years. Or we could collapse into nothing, as the Targaryens did. I need you to become the man you were always meant to be. Not next year, not tomorrow. Now.
Have you ever lost before?
Do you think I'd be in my position if I'd lost a war? This is the one I'll be remembered for. The War of Five Kings, they're calling it. My legacy will be determined in the coming months. You know what legacy means? It's what you pass down to your children and your children's children. It's what remains of you when you're gone. Hermann the Black thought this castle would be his legacy. Greatest fortress ever built. Tallest towers, the strongest walls. The Great Hall had 35 hearths. 35, can you imagine? Look at it now. A blasted ruin. Do you know what happened?
Dragons?
Yes. Dragons happened. Harren Hall was built to withstand an attack from the land. 1 million men could have marched on these walls, and 1 million men would have been repelled. But an attack from the air with dragon fire, Harren and all his sons roasted alive within these walls. Aegon Targaryen changed the rules. That's why every child alive still knows his name, 300 years after his death.
Aegon and his sisters.
Hmm?
It wasn't just Aegon riding his dragon. It was Rhaenys and Visenya too.
Correct. Student of history, are you?
Rhaenys rode Meraxes. Visenya rode Vhagar.
I'm sure I knew that when I was a boy.
Visenya Targaryen was a great warrior. She had a Valyrian steel sword she called Dark Sister.
She's a heroine of yours, I take it. Are most girls more interested in the pretty maidens from the songs? Jonquil, flowers in her hair?
Most girls are idiots.
You remind me of my daughter. Where did you learn all this stuff about Visenya and her Valyrian steel sword?
From my father.
He's a well-read stonemason. Can't say I've ever met a literate stonemason.
Have you met many stonemasons, my lord?
Careful now, girl. I enjoy you, but be careful. Take that back to the kitchen. Eat what you want. Girl. My lord. Low-born girls say my lord, not my lord. If you're going to pose as a commoner, you should do it properly.
My mother served Lady Dustin for many years, my lord. She taught me how to speak properly.
You're too smart for your own good. Has anyone told you that?
Yes.
Go on.
The badge looks good on you. Almost as good as it looked on me. Are you enjoying your new position?
Am I enjoying it?
I was very happy as Hand of the King.
Yes, I heard how happy you were. You brought a whore into my bed.
It wasn't your bed at the time.
I sent you here to advise the king. I gave you real power and authority. You chose to spend your days, as you always have, bedding harlots and drinking with thieves.
Occasionally, I drank with the harlots.
What do you want, Tyrion?
Why does everyone assume I want something? Can't I simply visit with my beloved father? My beloved father, who somehow forgot to visit his wounded son after he fell on the battlefield.
Mr. Pycelle assured me your wounds were not fatal.
I organized the defense of this city, while you held court in the ruins of Harrenhal. I led the foray when the enemies were at the gate, while your grandson, the king, quivered in fear behind the walls. I bled in the mud for our family, and as my reward, I was trundled off to some dark little cell. But what do I want? A little bloody gratitude would be a start.
Jugglers and singers require applause. You are a Lannister. Do you think I demanded a garland of roses every time I suffered a wound on the battlefield? Now, I have 7 kingdoms to look after, and 3 of them are in open rebellion. So, tell me what you want.
I want what is mine by right. Jaime is your eldest son, heir to your lands and titles, but he is a king's guard, forbidden from marriage or inheritance. The day Jaime put on the White Cloak, he gave up his claim to Casterly Rock. I am your son and lawful heir.
You want Casterly Rock?
It is mine by right.
We'll find you accommodations more suited to your name, and as a reward for your accomplishments during the Battle of Blackwater Bay. And when the time is right, you'll be given a position fit for your talents, so that you can serve your family and protect our legacy. And if you serve faithfully, you will be rewarded with a suitable wife. And I would let myself be consumed by maggots before mocking the family name and making you heir to Casterly Rock.
Why?
Why? You ask that? You who killed your mother to come into the world? You are an ill-made, spiteful little creature, full of envy, lust, and low cunning. Men's laws give you the right to bear my name and display my colors, since I cannot prove that you are not mine. And to teach me humility, the gods have condemned me to watch you waddle about, wearing that proud lion that was my father's sigil and his father's before him. But neither gods nor men will ever compel me to let you turn Casterly Rock into your whorehouse. Go now. Speak no more of your rights to Casterly Rock. Go.
You just sent the most powerful man in Westeros to bed without his supper.
You're a fool if you believe he's the most powerful man in Westeros.
A treasonous statement. Joffrey is king.
You really think a crown gives you power?
No. I think armies give you power. Robb Stark had one. Never lost a battle. And you defeated him all the same. Oh, I know. Walder Frey gets all the credit. Or the blame, I suppose, depending on your allegiance. Walder Frey is many things, but a brave man, no. He never would have risked such an action if he didn't have certain assurances.
Which you got from me. Do you disapprove?
I'm all for cheating. This is war. But to slaughter them at a wedding...
Explain to me why it is more noble to kill 10,000 men in battle than a dozen at dinner.
So that's why you did it? To save lives?
To end the war, to protect the family. Do you want to write a song for the dead Starks? Go ahead, write one. I'm in this world a little while longer. To defend the Lannisters, to defend my blood.
The Northerners will never forget.
Good. Let them remember what happens when they march on the south. All the Stark men are dead. Winterfell is a ruin. Roose Bolton will be named Warden of the North until your son by Sansa comes of age. I believe you still have some work to do on that score.
Do you think she'll open her legs for me after I tell her how we murdered her mother and brother?
One way or another, you will get that girl pregnant.
Will not rape her.
Shall I explain to you in one easy lesson how the world works?
Use small words. I'm not as bright as you.
The house that puts family first will always defeat the house that puts the whims and wishes of its sons and daughters first. A good man does everything in his power to better his family's position, regardless of his own selfish desires. Does that amuse you?
No, it's a very good lesson. Only it's easy for you to preach utter devotion to family when you're making all the decisions.
Easy for me, is it?
When have you ever done something that wasn't in your interest, but solely for the benefit of the family?
The day that you were born. I wanted to carry you into the sea and let the waves wash you away. Instead, I let you live. And I brought you up as my son. Because you're a Lannister. Your Grace.
Grandfather?
You wanted to speak to me?
Yes. I'd like a report on the meetings of my small council.
You're welcome to attend the meetings of your small council, Your Grace. Any or all of them.
I've been very busy. Many important matters require a king's attention.
Of course.
You've been holding the council meetings in the Tower of the Hand instead of the small council chamber.
I have, yes.
May I ask why?
Well, the Tower of the Hand is where I work. To walk from there to here would take time. Time I could otherwise spend productively.
So if I wanted to attend a council meeting, I would now have to climb all the stairs in the Tower of the Hand?
We could arrange to have you carried.
Tell me about the Targaryen girl in the east and her dragons.
Where did you hear about this?
Is it true?
Apparently so.
Don't you think we ought to do something about it?
When I was Hand of the King under your father's predecessor, the skulls of all the Targaryen dragons were kept in this room. And the skull of the last of them was right here. It was the size of an apple.
And the biggest was the size of a carriage.
Yes, and the creature to whom it belonged died 300 years ago. Curiosities on the far side of the world are no threat to us.
But how do we know these dragons are just curiosities and not the beasts that brought the whole world to heel?
Because we have been told as much by the many experts who serve the realm by counseling the king on matters about which he knows nothing.
But I haven't been counseled.
You are being counseled at this very moment.
I should be consulted about such things.
From now on, I will see to it that you are appropriately consulted on important matters. Whenever necessary. Your Grace.
I am acting commander here, Maester Hermann.
Yes, you are.
And I don't trust the bastard.
You told the truth.
And you always know when a man is telling a lie. How did you acquire this magical power?
I grew up in King's Landing.
And your wedding to Loras?
Shortly after Thomas.
Shortly?
A fortnight.
I know you don't like them. I didn't like your husband. Used to pat me on the back a lot. I didn't trust him.
We had that in common.
You don't need to make formal alliances with people you trust.
Then whom can we trust?
Ourselves alone. The Tyrells are our only true rivals in terms of resources, and we need them on our side.
Robert wasn't particularly rich.
Robert had me funding him. Wars swallow gold like a pit in the earth.
I suppose that explains why we did so well in the last one.
Do you know how much gold was mined in the Westerlands this past year?
Haven't a clue.
Go on, your best guess.
Pounds, tons, ounces.
Doesn't matter, the answer's the same.
It can't be.
Our last working mine ran dry 3 years ago.
Then how do we pay for anything?
The Crown owes the Iron Bank of Bravos a tremendous amount of money.
How much?
A tremendous amount.
There must be someone at the Iron Bank you can speak to, come to some arrangement.
The Iron Bank is the Iron Bank. There is no someone.
But someone does work there. It is comprised of people.
And a temple is comprised of stones. One stone crumbles and another takes its place. And the temple holds its form for 1,000 years or more. And that's what the Iron Bank is, a temple. We all live in its shadow, and almost none of us know it. You can't run from them, you can't cheat them, you can't sway them with excuses.
Countries within the euro currency bloc have forfeited their right to a national currency and handed this power to the European Central Bank. The deliberations of the ECB's decision-making bodies are secret. The mere attempt at influencing the ECB, for instance through democratic debate and discussion, is forbidden according to the Maastricht Treaty. The ECB is an international organization that is above and outside the laws and jurisdictions of any individual nation. Its senior staff carry diplomatic passports, and the files and documents inside the European Central Bank cannot be searched or impounded by any police force or public prosecutor. The ECB is well known among economists as one of the world's most powerful and least transparent central banks. Yet its former president, Jean-Claude Trichet, dealt with this problem by merely asserting that there was no problem. The world over, central banks hold significant yet little understood powers. Often independent, unaccountable and obscure, central banks operate in the shadows, yet their actions affect us all.
Central banks in almost all countries worldwide, and the IMF has helped a lot in achieving this, they've become totally independent and in practice not accountable to any democratic institution, and accountability to parliaments is usually minor and in practice meaningless.
Whether it is the Bank of Japan, the Federal Reserve, the Bank of England or the European Central Bank, examples of central bank deception abound. In the 1990s, the Japanese were persuaded that their economic system, which had brought considerable prosperity and equality, needed to be changed into a so-called free market system. And while Japan's transformation was not yet complete, the central bankers struck again with an IMF-led raid on the Asian tiger economies. The present European debt crisis is yet another example of central bank deception. To create a public consensus for the need for structural reform, by purposefully creating a recession and then needlessly prolonging it, must constitute an abuse of power.
Your brother is dead. Do you know what that means? I'm not trying to trick you.
It means I'll become king.
Yes, you will become king. What kind of king do you think you'll be?
A good king?
I think so as well. You've got the right temperament for it. But what makes a good king? What is a good king's single most important quality?
This is hardly the place or the time. Holiness?
Baelor the Blessed was holy and pious. He built this sept. He also named a 6-year-old boy High Septon because he thought the boy could work miracles. He ended up fasting himself into an early grave because food was of this world and this world was sinful.
Justice?
Yeah. Good king must be just. Horus I was just. Everyone applauded his reforms, nobles and commoners alike, but he wasn't just for long. He was murdered in his sleep after less than a year by his own brother. Was that truly just of him, to abandon his subjects to an evil that he was too gullible to recognize?
No.
No.
What about strength?
Yes, strength. King Robert was strong. He won the rebellion and crushed the Targaryen dynasty. And he attended 3 small council meetings in 17 years. He spent his time whoring and hunting and drinking until the last 2 killed him. So, we have a man who starves himself to death, a man who lets his own brother murder him, and a man who thinks that winning and ruling are the same thing. What do they all lack?
Wisdom?
Yes.
Wisdom is what makes a good king.
Yes. But what is wisdom? Great wealth and fertile lands ask you for your protection against another house with a strong navy that could one day oppose you. How do you know which choice is wise and which isn't? You any experience of treasuries and granaries or shipyards and soldiers?
No.
No, of course not. A wise king knows what he knows and what he doesn't. You're young. A wise young king listens to his counselors and heeds their advice until he comes of age. And the wisest kings continue to listen to them long afterwards.
Your Grace.
And so he spoke, that Lord